Hello, this is Zara P. Forbes with Words to Feed Your Soul. Today I'm going to be reading two versions of something called If I Had My Life Over. And it's an article, I suppose. Some call it a poem. It's an excerpt that was placed in the Reader's Digest in 1953. So let's get to it. The first one I'm going to read is the earliest known one. I feel it's got a very different feel. It's by Herold. Of course, you can't unfry an egg, but there is no law against thinking about it. If I had my life to live over, I would try to make more mistakes. I would relax. I would be sillier than I've been this trip. I know of very few things that I would take seriously. I'd be less hygienic. I would go more places. I would climb more mountains and swim more rivers. I would eat more ice cream and less bran. I would have more actual troubles and fewer imaginary troubles. You see, I have been one of those fellows who live prudently and sanely, hour after hour, day after day. Oh, I have had my moments. But if I had to do it over again, I would have more of them, a lot more. I never go anywhere without a thermometer, a gargle, a raincoat and a parachute. If I had to do it over, I would travel lighter. It may be too late to unteach an old dog old tricks, but perhaps a word from the unwise may be of benefit to a coming generation. It may help them to fall into some of the pitfalls that I have avoided. If I had my life to live over, I would pay less attention to people who teach tension. In a world of specialization, we naturally have a superabundance of individuals who cry at us to be serious about their individual speciality. They tell us we must learn Latin or history, otherwise we will be disgraced and ruined and flunked and failed. After a dozen or so of these protagonists have worked on a young mind, they are apt to leave it in hard knots for life. I wish they had sold me Latin and history as a lark. I would seek out more teachers who inspire relaxation and fun. I had a few of them, fortunately, and I figure it was they who kept me from going entirely to the dogs. From them I learned how to gather what few scraggly daisies I have gathered along life's cindery pathways. If I had my life to live over, I would start barefooted a little earlier in the spring and stay that way a little later in the fall. I would play hooky more. I would shoot more paper wads at my teachers. I would have more dogs. I would keep later hours. I'd have more sweethearts. I'd fish more. I'd go to more circuses. I would go to more dances. I would ride on more merry-go-rounds. I would be carefree as long as I could, at least until I got some care, instead of having my cares in advance. More errors are made solemnly than in fun. The rubs of family life come in moments of intense seriousness rather than in moments of lightheartedness. If nations, to magnify my point, declared international carnivals instead of international war, how much better would that be? G.K. Chesterton once said, "A characteristic of the great saints is their power of levity. Angels can fly because they take themselves lightly. One settles down into a sort of selfish seriousness, but one has to rise to a gay self-forgetfulness. A man falls into a brown study. He reaches up at a blue sky. In a world in which practically everyone else seems to be consecrated to the gravity of the situation, I would rise to glory the levity of the situation. For I agree with Will Durant that gaiety is wiser than wisdom. I doubt, however, that I will do much damage with my creed. The opposition is too strong. There are too many serious people trying to get everybody else to be too darn serious. Well, that's the end. Really about doing more and living more of life. It's a bit of an essence about, some kind of rat race that we're caught in, where everybody's telling us to mind our particular business, our Latins or our histories, and that we could just seek those things that are beautiful and uplifting instead of all of these responsibilities. I love the prospect. I think it's not impossible. I think it's unrealistic, because it denies those moments of intensity which develop character and those dark nights, and it's all wonderful to want all these absolutely beautiful and wonderful things, but people aren't skilled and capable of dealing with the repercussions and negative emotions that come from that full expression. I do like the aspect of not taking yourself so seriously. That I do get. Find that absolutely brilliant. But yeah, to have fun and to be lighthearted is, not taking yourself too seriously in this life. I mean, we've got to get over ourselves here. We are, nobody really cares that much. It's okay, it's okay for us to be us. There is no big ball that's going to come down and squash us if we don't comply to specific things. I constantly try to sort of deviate myself from that sort of cataclysmic thinking by thinking that in being me, in being Zara, there would be all these applicants for Zara, to be Zara, and that's it. I win. I get the job. I am the perfect person to be Zara because I am. So everything I do, even my faults, are perfect because they're perfectly Zara. They might not be perfectly Karen or Michelle or Joanne or any other apex of behavior that's placed upon me, but it is perfectly me. And for me to be able to embrace myself by not taking myself so seriously and just be okay being me. Excuse me. So what I'm going to do now is, to finish off, I'm just going to read a more common version of this that's kind of imagined like it's an old lady looking back on her life. And this one's by Nadine, Stair. So I'll finish off with that one, and I'll leave you to curiously perhaps ponder how seriously you take yourself, and whether you are 100% you, and how you can even see that your faults and your beauties, they are ultimately you, therefore 100%, that your faults are part of what makes you perfect. If I'm looking for a green car with a chipped fender, then a green car with no chipped fender is not perfect, because that's not what I want. That's not what I am. I've got to be who I am. Okay, let me finish off. If I had my life to live over, I'd dare to make more mistakes next time. I'd relax. I would limber up. I would be sillier than I had been this trip. I would take fewer things seriously. I would take more chances. I would climb more mountains and swim more rivers. I would eat more ice cream and less beans. I would perhaps have more actual troubles, but I'd have fewer imaginary ones. You see, I'm one of those people who live sensibly and sanely, hour after hour, day after day. Oh, I've had my moments, and if I had to do it over again, I'd have more of them. In fact, I'd try to have nothing else, just moments, one after another, instead of living so many years ahead of each day. I have been one of those persons who never goes anywhere without a thermometer, a hot water bottle, a raincoat and a parachute. If I had to do it again, I'd travel lighter than I have. If I had my life to live over, I would start barefoot earlier in the spring and stay that way later in the fall. I would go to more dances. I would ride more merry-go-rounds. I would pick more daisies. This is Zara P. Forbes with Words to Feed Your Soul.